Whatever the occasion, effortless elegance is right this way. Because Hilton brings you new ways to stay courtesy of the Nomad London. And it doesn't stop at award-winning dining in a space draped in velvet and illuminated by vintage chandeliers. No, this day goes beyond with unparalleled personalized service and attentive hospitality. Oh, and did we mention the Nomad London can be booked using your Hilton Honors points at Hilton.com? Hilton, for the stay.
McCrispy strips are now at McDonald's. I hope you're ready for the most dippable chicken in McDonald's history. Dip it in all the sauces. Dip it in that hot sauce in your bag. Dip it in your McFlurry. Your dip is your business. McCrispy strips at McDonald's.
Hi, and welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore. I'm the Executive Director of the National Street Food Vendors Association, which is a nonprofit dedicated to education, advocacy, and uplifting all food vendors. Today I'm going to be talking about the law that was just passed in Texas. It is called HB, which stands for House Bill 2844. And the fancy name they gave it was the Mobile Food Vendor Regulatory Consistency Act. Big fancy name. We're going to talk all about that bill today and how it impacts your business. But before we get into that, I want to remind you guys I'm going to be in Las Vegas, Nevada this year on July 15th and 16th. I'm going to be a part of the Food Truck Owners Expo, where I'll be giving 2 classes. I'll be kicking off the campfire sessions, which are little mini educational sessions. And then I'll be on the main expo floor where you guys can join me in my National Street Food Vendors Association booth. You can come ask questions, sit down and talk to me, talk to any of our other people that are going to be there, as well as just hang out with us and have a really great time there in Las Vegas, Nevada. Again, July 15th and 16th. If you'd like to attend, go to FTOexpo.com. Place your order for those tickets today, and when you do, put in the code FTTG15 for a 15% discount. So now on to House Bill 2844, the Mobile Food Vendor Regulatory Consistency Act. Let's see how regulatory consistent it's going to be and what it does and doesn't do for your food truck. The key provisions of the bill are statewide licensing. So mobile food vendors must obtain a license from the Texas Department of State Health Services. And it's a separate license, and it's just a statewide license. Okay, so in theory, that means once you have that license, you can go anywhere else in the state and vend without having to get a secondary license, without having to submit to inspections by the local city or the local county. It standardizes inspections. Health inspections will be conducted by a DSHS or a local authority under a collaborative agreement. Vendors are classified into 3 types based on the level of food preparation involved, and that in turn impacts the frequency and nature of the inspections. Okay, easy enough. Basically, other states have this. They call it a risk level. The higher the risk level of your food that you serve, the more frequently you're inspected. Nothing different there. Good to see. Local preemption. What this means is the local authorities are preempted, meaning they cannot enact regulations that conflict with the provisions of the law that was just passed. And some of the examples given is they can't restrict the number of hours you're allowed to operate. They can't create a distance from existing businesses, so that little buffer zone that a lot of cities do. And they can't require additional permits. Okay, now the confusion comes in, the implication is additional food permits. Now, if they have a generic business license for every business that operates within their boundaries, yes, you'll have to get one of those too. The bill also puts a permit fee cap. It caps permit fees at $150. And of course, that means the goal was to reduce the financial burden on small businesses. This is a good thing. But now let's talk a little bit more about the pros for you as a food truck owner, and then we'll talk about the cons. The pros for you as a food truck owner, the bill creates that uniformity. It's a single statewide permit, which is great. Florida has one. I can go anywhere I want in the state of Florida. Don't have to tell anybody I'm there. I can just set up, start operating. That's the good thing. It helps eliminate the need to sit in line like they make you do in Texas to be inspected and waste a whole day being inspected to get that duplicate permit that you've already got one of. The cost savings, that fee cap and the elimination of duplicate permits help save you money. That's awesome. That operational flexibility. Now you can go places that you couldn't go before because you didn't have a permit. Now you can go. I know a lot of people in Houston area that have 7, 8, 9 permits just to be able to vend everywhere. But if you can't afford those, especially when you're first starting, you're locked into your one and only permit that you have. Now you're not locked in. The bill shows support for small businesses. Its goal is to foster entrepreneurship by reducing the bureaucratic, the red tape, the nonsense that politicians throw out there. All of these are good things. But now let's talk about the bad things. The first one is limited local control. The preemption of local regulations may hinder municipalities from addressing specific community needs and concerns related to food trucks. So some of those specific community needs that would need to be addressed could be like parking issues. In the city of Houston, I'm very aware of a lot of illegal vendors that go out of the back of their trunk or a shopping cart, for example, and they set up on a parking lot of an apartment complex, taking up parking spots that belong to the residents. And then when they're asked to leave, they just move out to the sidewalk or they move out to the actual driveway leading in. It makes it harder for those local communities to address those kind of needs because the bill isn't written with clarity. It's going to create enforcement challenges. The centralization of inspections in local authorities may have less immediate oversight, which is awesome, but then it also leads to enforcement delays. Again, with many of the illegal vendors, they can claim they've got the statewide license when they don't, and it makes it harder for someone to say, hey, you need to close up shop. Oh, I don't have my license on me, but I got one, I promise I do. It makes it more difficult. They need to have clear ways of how to address the illegal vendors, and there are many hundreds, if not thousands, in Texas. There are potentials for loopholes. We know politicians love creating loopholes. The bill preempts conflicting local regulations, but it does not entirely eliminate local authority, and it can't. A state law can't eliminate local authority. And municipalities are going to find ways to impose restrictions that don't conflict with the state law. We see this in places like Florida. We have that statewide license. So what the local cities and counties do is they restrict our movements through zoning laws or other indirect means. So it makes it more difficult to operate in a city when the city says you can only vend in this zone and this zone. You can only be a mobile food vendor. I saw this in one of our local towns that I used to vend in. The two places that used to be the only legal places for a mobile food vendor, you did not want to go to. And that's a local zoning law. The state can't do anything about the local zoning laws. It's called policing power. Policing power is not just the men in blue coming to chase you down and commit a crime. Policing power is also public safety. So they write the zoning law saying if these optimum places that a food truck would want to be in, they create a safety issue by being there. So we can't allow them to be there. But in these other zones, they won't create a problem. And of course, the politicians are laughing to themselves because they know no one's going to want to go there. That's why they don't create a problem. So you got to be aware of what the potential local people could do. So what I recommend food truck owners do to prepare, you got to stay informed. Check regularly for updates from DSHS regarding the licensing procedures and requirements. Since the law just passed, it's going to be a difficult journey at first because all the rules and regulations that are in place now had to be changed or deleted or struck down by a court. So there's going to be a time where, even though the state law says you can't force me to have a license in Houston, Houston most likely is going to try to force you into that license, and they will fight it in court. Now, how do I know this? Because I've seen it happen in other cities. In Florida, when we passed a law that said one state license, it's pretty easy to understand. One state license, the local cities cannot require a food permit, a food license. They can require all kinds of other permits, but those other requirements have to apply to every business. They can't single out a mobile food business. So one of the cities just ignored the law. Tarpon Springs. They said, nope, you got to have our food license. And it went on for a couple of years before they finally realized that that's a battle they can't win and they're wasting money fighting it because the state law was very clear. You do not have the authority to require an additional food license. So will some city like Houston or some other big city, even some small cities do it? It's entirely possible. So you want to stay informed and stay ahead of those trends. You want to engage with those local authorities. While the bill limits certain local regulations, you still want to have that communication with those local officials because you just never know when one of them's going to say, hey, here's a loophole and here's how we can get around this. And you want to make sure that you're advocating for fair practices. Participate in those local discussions, especially when some nitwit politician wants to let's do this to limit those mean old food vendors that are hurting the restaurants. Now, they may not say you have to have another food license, but they can say something along the lines of, let's create these zones where mobile food vendors can hang out, and I can guarantee you those zones will not be to your benefit. So just understand that this bill and the one that's just passed in Oklahoma, the one that just died in Alabama, and there are other states that are either passing, discussing, or have passed a single statewide bill for food truck owners, again, which is awesome. And it represents a significant shift because we have more states this year talking about it than we've ever had in the past. But don't trust those local politicians. Don't trust the national ones either, for that matter. Most of them have ulterior motives. So when somebody supports a bill like this, I want to know what else they're supporting. Why are they supporting this particular bill? What's the other shoe that's going to drop? Celebrate it. Absolutely celebrate it. Be excited that there's that potential for you to only have a single license in the state of Texas. I think that's awesome. But tomorrow, make sure you're paying attention to what the local people are going to be saying and doing. Because again, this bill hasn't been signed yet, at least as of this recording, which is on June 1st, 2025. At the point that the bill gets signed and becomes official, all those local cities and counties have to figure out, where do we make up for the income we've now lost? And they'll figure out a way. Most of the cities that I'm familiar with in Texas, the license to vend is $500 to $1,100. That's a big chunk of money that they are now losing to the state. So how are they going to recoup all that money? So again, keep your ear to the ground, see what the local politicians are doing, and participate. Thank you guys so much for listening to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. If you're finding everything helpful that we do, please consider subscribing. If you love what we do, show some support. There's a link in the description to make that happen. Until next time, you guys have a profitable day.